Why are you not getting results? Or why are you not getting the results that you probably want? It's more than likely because you're unfocused, old-fashioned, and confused. That's the hard truth. Look, it's likely that you're one, two, or three of these things. Yeah, I'll be interested at the end when I've explained them a little bit more, whether you say, yeah, actually it's one, it's two, or yeah, strike out, Fred. It's not like you do this stuff on purpose. Of course it's not. But again, what I see is that people, they kind of fall into bad habits. They sort of let things slip a little bit. And before they realize what they're doing is they're really not working in the best possible way that they could be doing to get the results that they want. You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes. I want to give plenty of food for thought. So how are we going to do this? Three main areas. Again, keep stuff nice and simple. First bit, we're going to talk about how you are effective or not, because this is the stuff, if we don't get it right, it's going to cause people stress. We do not want to be stressed. Second part, we'll be talking about getting up to date. What I'm finding is if we're not doing the right things now, it's not only not working, but we're actually driving customers away. Not good. And then the last part, we're talking about getting more aligned in what we're doing. To say the whole situation now is a little bit confusing, might be a bit of an understatement. So let's just think about, how we can be aligned to doing the stuff that really works. I'll share some scenarios and I'll give you some steps in how you can get right up to date with modern selling. So who am I? So yeah, my name is Fred Copestake. I've had quite a career in sales. I mean, over the last 22 years, I've been around the world 14 times, worked in 36 different countries and trained over 10,000 salespeople. That has been a real privilege, a lot of fun. But what it's also allowed me to do is to start to identify some of the challenges that salespeople have. As a result of that, it put me in the position where I could write my first book, Selling Through Partnering Skills, which helps address some of these similar mistakes, some of these bad habits that salespeople have fallen into. One of the things I could see is that sales is really evolving faster than some of us think. And so salespeople need to make the shift, need to sort of close that gap between what customers need us to do and what we're actually doing. And that gap's growing. This was published in 2020, same time as you know what. And so I saw these changes and these gaps starting to grow even further. The adaptations salespeople need to make to keep bang up to date are getting even bigger. That's why I wrote my second book. There are people about helping salespeople stay relevant. And I'm very pleased to say that went to #1 on Amazon. So I'm going to be channeling some of the things out of that into what I'm talking about today. In a nutshell, if you wanted the 10-second version of what I'm about, it's all about having good people doing good things in a good way. That's how you could kind of summarize me in one line. Can I be blunt and honest with you as we go through this? Can I be blunt and honest? Why are you not getting results? Or why are you not getting the results that you probably want? It's more than likely because you're unfocused, old-fashioned, and confused. That's the hard truth. Look, it's likely that you're one, two, or three of these things. Yeah, I'll be interested at the end when I've explained them a little bit more, whether you say, yeah, actually it's one, it's two, or yeah, strike out, Fred. It's not like you do this stuff on purpose. Of course it's not. But again, what I see is that people, they kind of fall into bad habits. They sort of let things slip a little bit. And before they realize what they're doing is they're really not working in the best possible way that they could be doing to get the results that they want. And certainly when we're under a bit of stress, when we're under difficult times, like we are now, we're under pressure, the brain starts to do weird things. We can't think right. We go into that freeze, fight, flight mode where we can't think properly, and we kind of end up throwing good effort after bad effort. And so we're not making the difference that we want to. Again, my job is to help flag up some of these things that you might catch yourself doing. It can be a little bit uncomfortable, but when you know, you can do something about it. I give little labels to these three main challenges that I see. So let's have a think about this next set of challenges, or this next challenge. And this is one which I call Olde Worlde. And Olde Worlde and busy often work together. Yeah, Olde Worlde is about being old-fashioned. Yeah, this is about when salespeople are too self-centered rather than customer-focused. Yeah, everyone says they're customer-focused these days, but then you hear how people operate, and it's me, we, I. It's all about them, their product, their service, their offer, and that's stuff that customers aren't interested in. They're interested in themselves and what they're trying to achieve. Yeah, so it's a trap that we can fall into. It's another trap, and certainly engineers might fall into this. So that's what I've observed, is that they can get too technical. They can get right down into the weeds with the technicalities of stuff, which is sometimes required, accepted, but sometimes it's too much to the customer. They're like, oh, I don't need all this stuff. Please stop. Those couple of things tend to be from, I think it's from passion. People get excited. They're enthusiastic about the stuff they sell, which is good. The one where I tend to get a bit more upset about is when people are just using poor practice, bad techniques, that old-fashioned selling, that stuff that was trained some years ago and that people thought was a terribly good idea. Yeah, pushy, manipulative, I think I'm trying to say. No, we don't need that. Please stop it. Marla Powertrain, they're an engineering consultancy. They do some incredibly clever stuff, all about getting more power and less emissions for manufacturers at the top end of the spectrum. Work with them, and part of the training that we really need to focus on was getting them up to date. Actually, it was kind of getting them some good solid basis, because these guys are incredibly well-trained engineers. I mean, guys got PhDs, but hadn't really been exposed to what good selling looks like. And so what they naturally kind of dropped into was telling customers all about themselves. Oh, we've got great software, we've got great test facilities, we've got so super people. I was saying, guys, we need to flip that. Flip, follow, focus. That's the way to get more modern. Flip what it is that you're doing to have your attention on the world of the customer. Such a key thing. Talk to them about them. That's their favorite subject. That's what we need to be doing. If you fall into the trap of getting too technical, it's follow a process. Use structures that keeps you doing the right thing at the right time, not kind of going into what you think might be right, but actually isn't really working. The focus then is just focus on stuff that works now. You know, the old tricks, the closers, the sort of some of the little hacks and stuff that you can read about. I mean, LinkedIn's still full of this stuff. Don't really work. Really think about the things that make a difference. And what I'm saying here is that this is very, very doable. I'll talk to you about what the guys from Marla actually did as a result. But what we did is we went through the best sales practice from time gone by, talked about how times have changed, take the stuff that's still relevant and got tweaks to make it modern, and then added some of the new stuff in along with the PQ thinking, which we'd already done. So yeah, think about it. You know, sales is evolving. You know, we need to evolve with it. We need to stay relevant. Well, that's something I get really concerned for salespeople about, is that customers stop talking to them because they don't get any value. They're not relevant. But what they do isn't very valuable anymore. So we need to think about, you know, what can we do to make sure we stay relevant? And now this isn't about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There is some good stuff that's gone before. We want to keep that and say, just tweak it, make it bang up to date. So we'll have a think about a little evolution of sales. We're going to go back to the 50s. We're going to scoot through the decades, pick the good stuff, and I'll just flag up some of the things that we can do to keep ourselves right up there, right in what's going to be useful today. So 50s. So I like a bit of a geek when it comes to sales and sales history, but I like how what was going on in sales kind of reflects the era. And one of the things that we saw, so in the 50s, you think about it, it's rebuilding time. It was all about efficiency. It's all about being a bit more effective. And that's what it was with sales. So it's all about process. It's all about doing tried and tested things again and again so that we could get the results that we wanted. I'm not going to argue with that. That's exactly part of the point that I'm making. So, I mean, I still talk about AIDA, which was a structure then, as a great way to format a meeting. Attention, interest, desire, action, keeps you doing right things, right time. Some of the stuff that probably wasn't done as then, again, we can add formats and templates to, writing proposals, something that not all salespeople do well today. Again, you can template it. We can have a format to it. Then there's some new things, which again are just based around formulas and structures. That's storytelling. We know stories are really getting a popularity in selling at the moment. Yeah, video messaging. Well, that wasn't around in the 50s, but it is now. There's a structure to sending a video message. Yeah, posting on social media. Again, there's structures to it. We can learn these. We can do the things that work time and time again. Into the 60s, what was going on then? I always think about this as like the era of psychedelia, fascination with the brain, doing stuff to it. And that's what was going on then. It was about how we could use psychology to understand customers, what their preferences are, and how we can adapt so that what we're doing sits better with them. Again, let's do that now. But we can do stuff to get ourselves even more effective at it. There's some cracking tech out there that helps you understand someone's personality style before you've even met them. Crystal knows, Humantix, something like this. Have a think about how that person prefers information and how we can be ready to make that adaptation. Even think about, the neuroscience. There's so much we understand better about the brain now because of how we've used functional MRI into really, what is going on physiologically. So again, we can really look at getting great in the way we connect to people. Let's think about what was going on in the 70s. So think about in the 70s, this was benefit selling really. And so understanding feature, advantage, benefit. This was to really get us thinking about what's in it for me. That's what customers don't ask us, but it's what they're thinking. Yeah. So I would always say that's a good basis for a salesperson, but we can become too reliant on that and sometimes overindulge on product training so that actually we're so good at talking about our stuff, but forgetting to give insights and perspectives onto why that is so important. So yeah, again, all these things, I'm not saying throw them away, but let's make sure we bring them bang up to date. And so what we'll see with the 70s, there's certainly in kind of the 90s and the noughties, things which we can add into that to make it work for us. Yeah. So 80s. Oh dear, the 80s. What can sales learn from the 80s? There's a lot of weird stuff going on then. For me, I always think of 80s, close, close, close. Greed is good. Gordon Gekko, all this sort of stuff. So beware the rubbish. What we can take is sales was, always will be, a series of advancements. So it's about how we move things forward. We need to do that. So it's just the way in which we do it. We can be a bit more elegant than some of the ways which were trained back then. We can think about, again, back to neuroscience, how people make decisions. We can start to understand language patterns and things better. We can use mutual action plans, which can be held up in the clouds. They're always bang up to date. There's plenty of things we can use to keep the sale moving forward. So yeah, not totally lost on the 80s. But certainly the 90s, when it came to sales, was a sea change. C in this case, as in consultative. So this is when Neil Rackham and his team were researching selling, and they were understanding that actually, rather than push for close, the very best salespeople were taking more time, back to that, and asking better questions. Asking questions to focus on the customer's needs. Really understanding with the customer where they are now, where they want to be, and the potential gap and difference there is between those two positions. That is still a very solid basis for good selling today. Now, sometimes I'll blurt stuff out like consultative selling isn't enough. And I do believe that because I think there's better stuff we can do, but it is definitely foundational. And even if we look at the consultative selling of what was trained then, things have moved on. Adjustments have been made. I don't know if the guys at Challenger would agree with me, but for me, Challenger, it's a way of using consultative selling with a bit more of a modern spin on it. Spin on spin, if you like. So yeah, that's what we need to do, is we need to be really thinking about how we can work with customers to help them understand stuff better. And you're going to hear me say this another couple of times. Yeah, because that's where I think sales is going. Salespeople are sense makers, helping people to think. And if you think about it, that's what was going on in the noughties. In the noughties, we talked about value selling, value-based selling. And so it's really working with the customer to understand what value is. That's a mistake I still see people make today, though, is they turn up at a customer and say, your value is this. You can have an idea, you can do your research, you can do your prep. But yeah, I would encourage that. But really, it's think about how can we work with them to understand what they think is valuable. So it's an insight that customers are wanting. They're wanting perspectives, they're wanting ways of thinking. One of the ways which we can do this today, we talk a lot about VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. We are in VUCA times. So thinking about how we can guide customers through VUCA. And there's models to do that. Volatility, we give customers vision. Uncertainty, we give them understanding. Complexity, we give them clarity. Ambiguity, we give them agility. Those things, as the salesperson can bring that into the discussion, they are a valuable asset, if you like, to the customer. So we want to think, how can we bring those into play? And we skip into the 10s. So in the 10s, I was trading then, and I would talk to people about their sales stature. And so this was a way of saying that you have to come across as the person that customers will want to go to. You'd be the go-to person because you're able to help them. You're able to bring value to the party. And now we probably talk about personal branding. That seems to be the phrase du jour. But again, it's understanding about, okay, if we're going to do that, what tools are there available and how do we do it? Now, so social media is going to be a big part of that. Yeah, using social media, certainly B2B sales, the world I inhabit, posting valuable stuff, giving people things that they're going to find useful. I think a bit of a mistake people make sometimes is to be a bit too corporate, personally. Personal branding. Whether you go fully down the route of cat pictures and holidays and all that stuff every single day, I'm not so sure. Probably a bit too much. But no, certainly a bit about yourself. I'm one for a cat picture, don't worry about that. And selfies. Yeah, selfies work. You are showing yourself. You want people to recognize you. The face that we have is the thing that our brains are wired to respond to. That's why people use it. I use it quite a bit. So think about, rather than just talk about your product, talk about people's problems, the issues that they might be having. Talk about yourself and how you can bring something to the party. So then we just jump into the 20s. So 20s, for me, I've already said it, it's about being collaborative. It's taking this stuff, it's moving on with the things that we can still use, thinking like a partner, working alongside people to co-create and to kind of bring that value in together. I said I'd come back to the guys at Mahler when they went to Koenigsegg. So we did the training, we talked about a whole load of stuff. As we were talking about the evolutions and talking particularly about the questioning skills stuff that came out of consultative selling, they were going on a trip. Some of the guys were going on a trip to Sweden. I said, look, this is how you need to be running the meeting. Come on. And they, oh, we need to tell them this. We need to tell them this. No, don't tell. Ask. Come on, humour me. Structure the meeting like we said. Run it this way. And I knew the guys were uncomfortable about this. I said, look, come on, just do it. They did. And they reported back to me. We had another training session the week after they got back. And they said, oh, it was amazing. It's so cool. We were there. We were asking them questions. They were telling us all sorts. We got to know more about their business than we've ever done before. Thinking, yes, that's the point. So, but then the boss man, Christian von Koenigsegg himself, puts his head in the meeting, the way bosses do. So, what are we all up to then? I'll sit down 15 minutes. They said he was there for 2 hours, cancelled another couple of meetings, told them all about some of the more strategic plans they'd got. And, they said it was just an amazing meeting. Not just with the info that they learned, but the connections they made by being interested in people. I love that. It's just so good. I get hairs in the back of my neck when I think about that particular story. So that takes us to the end of that little session. So we need to move salespeople from that busy, horrible, wasteful, tiring, unfocused approach. They're using old-fashioned techniques. They're doing the things which push customers away from them. And we need to give them the ability to stop being so confused about what they're actually trying to do and sell. We can do this. So we can move them to where they're helping people because they're preparing, they're planning, they're using good process, they're being more effective. They can flip, follow, and focus, yes, because what they're doing is they're thinking about the customer and they're doing stuff based on genuine customer centricity. And then what we can do is we can give them that clarity in the way that they work. Managers can coach them. The salesperson is dead sure about how it is they need to work. Going back to what I set out at the beginning, for me, that's about having good people doing good things in a good way.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the Collaborative Selling Scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.